Something just happened with XRP that most people are completely missing right now. And it is not just another small update. This could be one of the biggest shifts in the entire Ripple ecosystem. We are talking about RLUSD, Ripple's new stablecoin, suddenly gaining massive traction across exchanges, institutions, and even real world financial systems. While many XRP holders are confused, some are even worried, asking the same question: is RLUSD replacing XRP, or is this the moment XRP finally explodes? Stay with me because what is happening behind the scenes right now could change everything you thought you knew about XRP. Right now, the crypto market is reacting to something that looks simple on the surface, but is actually very powerful underneath. And that is the sudden rise of RLUSD. To understand why people are saying what just happened, you need to first understand what RLUSD actually is and why Ripple is pushing it so aggressively. RLUSD is a stable coin created by Ripple, which means it is designed to stay stable in value, usually around $1. Unlike XRP, which moves up and down in price, RLUSD is meant for stability, payments, and institutional use. This is very important because big financial institutions do not like volatility. They want something predictable, something safe, and something that works fast. Now, here's where things get interesting. Over the past few weeks, RLUSD has suddenly started appearing everywhere. It got listed on major exchanges like OKX and even integrated into trading systems where it can be used as collateral. This means traders and institutions can now use RLUSD in real financial activity, not just hold it. At the same time, platforms like Binance have already integrated RLUSD on the XRP ledger, allowing deposits and expanding its usability. This is not small news. This is a signal that RLUSD is being pushed into the core of the crypto financial system. But the biggest shock came when reports showed that RLUSD is now being used in advanced financial products like Bitcoin options trading through Ripple Prime. This means RLUSD is not just a stable coin, it is becoming a tool for serious institutional finance. Now, you might be thinking, okay, but what about XRP? Is XRP being replaced? This is exactly why the market is confused right now. Some headlines are even suggesting that institutional money is flowing more into RLUSD than XRP, which has created fear among holders. But here is the key point that most people are missing. RLUSD and XRP are not competitors. They are designed to work together. Think of it like this: RLUSD is the stable money that institutions feel comfortable using, while XRP is the bridge asset that moves value quickly across borders. XRP still settles transactions in about 3 to 5 seconds with extremely low fees, which is something traditional systems cannot match. So, what we are seeing right now is not replacement, it is expansion. Ripple is building a full financial ecosystem. RLUSD handles stability and compliance, while XRP handles speed and liquidity. Together, they create a system that can compete with traditional banking. And this is where things get even bigger. In Japan, one of Ripple's strongest partners, SBI Holdings, has already started distributing RLUSD and integrating it into real financial products like bonds and reward systems. This shows that RLUSD is not just theory, it is already being used in the real world. At the same time, millions of RLUSD tokens are being minted and adjusted on the XRP ledger as Ripple manages supply and demand. This indicates active usage, not just speculation. So when people say what just happened, what they are really reacting to is this sudden realization that Ripple is no longer just a crypto company, it is becoming a full financial infrastructure. And RLUSD is a huge part of that plan. But here is the twist, and this is what most people are not talking about yet. If RLUSD adoption keeps growing at this speed, it could actually increase the demand for XRP instead of reducing it. Because every time value moves inside this ecosystem, XRP can act as the bridge behind the scenes. That is the part most retail investors are not seeing yet. And in the next part, we are going to break down exactly how RLUSD could secretly be the biggest bullish signal for XRP and why smart money might already be positioning before the market fully understands what is happening. Now that you understand what RLUSD is and why it suddenly appeared everywhere, the next question becomes even more important. How does this actually affect XRP? And why are some of the smartest investors quietly paying attention instead of panicking? At first glance, it is very easy to assume that RLUSD is taking attention away from XRP, especially because stablecoins are often used more in trading and real world transactions. When people see a stablecoin backed by Ripple itself, they immediately think that institutions will prefer RLUSD over XRP because it does not have price volatility. That assumption sounds logical, but it misses a very important detail about how Ripple's system is designed to work. Ripple has never positioned XRP as a stable currency. XRP was always designed to be a bridge asset, something that moves value between two different currencies quickly and efficiently. This means XRP's strength is not stability, it is speed, liquidity, and the ability to connect different financial systems together. RLUSD, on the other hand, solves a completely different problem. It gives institutions a stable unit of value that they can trust when entering the crypto ecosystem. When you combine these two roles together, something very powerful starts to form. Imagine a bank in one country holding RLUSD as a stable digital dollar, and another bank in a different country needing to receive funds in their local currency. Instead of going through slow and expensive traditional systems, XRP can act as the bridge that converts RLUSD into another currency almost instantly. This creates a flow where RLUSD is used for holding value, while XRP is used for moving that value. This is why many analysts believe that RLUSD could actually increase the demand for XRP instead of replacing it. Every time RLUSD is used in cross border activity, there is a strong possibility that XRP will be used behind the scenes to complete that transaction. And here's the key point: these transactions happen at a scale that retail investors cannot even see directly. Another important factor to consider is liquidity. For any financial system to work efficiently, it needs deep liquidity, meaning there must be enough buyers and sellers to handle large transactions without causing price instability. XRP already has a strong position in this area because it has been traded globally for years and is listed on many major exchanges. RLUSD entering the system adds more volume, more activity, and more reasons for institutions to participate. As more institutions start using RLUSD, they will naturally connect to the XRP ledger because that is where RLUSD operates. Once they are inside that ecosystem, using XRP for liquidity and settlement becomes a natural step. This is how network effects work. The more participants join, the stronger the entire system becomes. There is also a psychological shift happening in the market right now. For a long time, XRP has been seen as a speculative asset, something that retail investors buy hoping for price increases. But with RLUSD entering the picture, the narrative is slowly changing. Ripple is no longer just offering a token, it is offering a full financial solution. This makes XRP look less like a risky bet and more like a core piece of infrastructure. And institutions care about infrastructure, not hype. Another thing that many people are overlooking is regulation. Stablecoins like RLUSD are much easier to integrate into regulated financial systems because their value is stable and easier to track. This makes RLUSD a perfect entry point for banks, governments, and large financial companies. Once they start using RLUSD, they become familiar with Ripple's technology, and that opens the door for XRP to be used in more advanced use cases. So instead of thinking of RLUSD as competition, it is more accurate to think of it as a gateway. It brings institutions into the ecosystem in a safe and controlled way. And once they are inside, XRP becomes a powerful tool they can use for efficiency. Now, here is where things start to get even more interesting. Some early data is already showing increased activity on the XRP ledger, which suggests that this integration is not just theoretical, it is already starting to happen in real time. And if this trend continues, we could see a situation where RLUSD drives adoption while XRP captures the value of that adoption. This kind of setup is very rare in the crypto space. Most projects rely on a single token for everything, which limits their flexibility. Ripple is doing the opposite by separating stability and utility into two different assets, and that gives them a major advantage when dealing with real world finance. But there is still one major question that needs to be answered, and this is where things get even more serious. What happens if RLUSD adoption grows faster than expected and institutions start using it at a global scale? Because if that happens, the demand for XRP could reach levels that most people are not prepared for. And in the next part, we are going to break down exactly what that scenario could look like, including the potential impact on XRP's price and why some predictions are starting to sound extreme, but not impossible anymore. Now, we are getting into the part that most people are either excited about or completely dismissing, and that is the future impact of RLUSD adoption on XRP's price and overall demand. Because once you understand how this system could scale globally, you start to see why some predictions that once sounded unrealistic are now being discussed more seriously. Let's break this down in a simple and logical way. If RLUSD continues to grow and becomes widely used by financial institutions, banks, and payment providers, then the total amount of value moving through the Ripple ecosystem will increase significantly. We are not talking about small transactions anymore. We are talking about billions and potentially trillions of dollars moving across borders between currencies and through digital systems. Now, here is the key connection. Whenever large amounts of value need to move quickly between different currencies, there has to be a bridge that provides liquidity and speed. This is exactly where XRP comes in. XRP is designed to handle high volume transactions with extremely low fees and fast settlement times. So, if RLUSD becomes the preferred stable asset for institutions, XRP naturally becomes the tool that helps move that value efficiently. Think about the global payment system today. Traditional banking networks are slow, expensive, and rely on multiple intermediaries. Transactions can take days to settle and involve high fees. Ripple system offers a much faster alternative, and with RLUSD providing a stable entry point, institutions now have a complete solution that is both efficient and reliable. As more institutions start using RLUSD, the volume of transactions flowing through the XRP ledger could increase dramatically. And here is where supply and demand start to play a major role. XRP has a fixed supply, which means there is a limit to how many tokens exist. At the same time, a small amount of XRP is burned with every transaction, slowly reducing the total supply over time. If demand increases while supply becomes more limited, basic economics suggests that the price could rise. But let's stay realistic here. Price movement does not happen overnight, and it is not guaranteed. However, what makes this situation different is the scale of potential adoption. If even a small percentage of global financial transactions start using RLUSD and XRP together, the demand for XRP could increase far beyond what we have seen in previous market cycles. This is why some analysts are starting to make bold predictions again. They are not just looking at hype, they are looking at the structure being built. A system where a stable coin like RLUSD handles value storage, while XRP handles liquidity and settlement, is something that can operate at a global level. Another important factor to consider is competition. There are many stable coins in the market right now, but most of them are not directly integrated into a full financial infrastructure like Ripple's system. RLUSD has the advantage of being built within an ecosystem that already focuses on cross border payments and institutional partnerships. This gives it a unique position compared to other stable coins. At the same time, XRP has been around for years and has already proven its ability to handle fast and low cost transactions. This combination of experience and new innovation creates a strong foundation for future growth. Now, let's talk about timing. Right now, we are likely in the early stages of this transition. RLUSD is still gaining adoption, and many institutions are just starting to explore how it fits into their systems. This means the full impact has not yet been realized. Markets often react slowly to structural changes like this, especially when they involve large financial players. This creates an interesting situation where those who understand what is happening early could potentially benefit the most if the trend continues. However, it is also important to stay grounded. Not every prediction will come true, and the market can be unpredictable. There are still regulatory challenges, competition from other projects, and broader economic factors that can influence how things develop. But what cannot be ignored is the direction. Ripple is clearly building something bigger than just a cryptocurrency. It is creating an ecosystem designed for real world financial use, and RLUSD is accelerating that process. XRP remains a core part of that system, especially when it comes to moving value quickly and efficiently. So, when people ask what just happened with RLUSD, the real answer is this: we may be witnessing the early stages of a major shift where Ripple's ecosystem moves from being a niche player in crypto to becoming a serious competitor in global finance. And if that shift continues, the role of XRP could become more important than ever. But there is still one critical piece of the puzzle that we have not fully explored yet. How are governments and regulators reacting to this? And could regulation actually push XRP and RLUSD even further into the spotlight? Because in the next part, we are going to look at the regulatory side of this story and why it might be one of the biggest factors that determines how far this entire system can go. Now we move into one of the most important and often misunderstood parts of this entire situation, and that is regulation. Because no matter how powerful the technology is, no matter how fast or efficient the system becomes, if regulators do not support it or at least allow it to operate, growth will always be limited. But what is happening right now with RLUSD and XRP in terms of regulation is actually very interesting. And for many investors, it could be one of the most bullish signals yet. Let's start with a simple reality. Governments and financial regulators around the world have been very cautious when it comes to cryptocurrencies. The main concerns have always been volatility, lack of control, transparency issues, and risks to financial stability. This is exactly why many institutions have stayed on the sidelines for so long, even though they recognize the potential of blockchain technology. Now, this is where RLUSD changes the game. Stablecoins are much easier for regulators to understand and manage compared to highly volatile assets. Since RLUSD is designed to maintain a stable value, it fits more naturally into existing financial frameworks. Regulators can track it, audit it, and integrate it into systems without worrying about sudden price swings that could create risk. This makes RLUSD a powerful bridge, not just between currencies, but between traditional finance and the crypto world. When regulators see a system that includes a stable coin like RLUSD, they are more likely to consider approving or supporting its use, especially if it meets compliance standards. This opens the door for banks, payment providers, and even governments to start using Ripple's technology in a more official capacity. And once that door opens, XRP benefits because while RLUSD may be the part that regulators feel comfortable with, XRP is still the engine that provides speed and liquidity behind the scenes. If the system gets regulatory approval, XRP becomes part of a compliant financial network rather than just a speculative asset. This is a major shift in perception. For years, XRP has faced uncertainty due to regulatory challenges, especially in major markets. That uncertainty has held back its adoption and price growth because institutions do not like risk when it comes to compliance. But if RLUSD helps create a regulated pathway into the Ripple ecosystem, it could reduce that uncertainty significantly. Another important factor is global alignment. Different countries have different approaches to crypto regulation, but there is a growing trend toward creating clear rules for stable coins. Many governments are already exploring how to integrate digital currencies into their economies, whether through central bank digital currencies or regulated stable coins. RLUSD fits directly into this trend. If Ripple positions RLUSD as a compliant and transparent stablecoin, it could gain approval in multiple regions, creating a network that operates across borders. And since the XRP ledger supports this system, XRP becomes part of that global infrastructure. This is where things start to scale. Imagine a scenario where multiple countries allow RLUSD to be used in payments, settlements, and financial products. Institutions in those countries would need a fast and efficient way to move value between different currencies and systems. XRP is designed to solve exactly that problem. So instead of being blocked by regulation, XRP could actually benefit from it. Now, let's address a concern that many people have. What if regulators focus only on RLUSD and ignore XRP? This is a valid question, but it overlooks how interconnected the system is. RLUSD alone cannot provide the same level of efficiency in cross border transactions without a bridge asset. While there are other solutions, XRP already has the infrastructure, speed, and track record to fill that role. In addition, Ripple has been actively working with regulators and financial institutions for years. This experience gives them an advantage when it comes to navigating complex regulatory environments. They understand what is required and how to position their products in a way that aligns with legal frameworks. Another point to consider is transparency. Blockchain technology allows transactions to be tracked and verified, which is something regulators actually appreciate when it comes to preventing fraud and ensuring compliance. By combining RLUSD with XRP on the XRP ledger, Ripple is offering a system that is both efficient and transparent. This combination could make it more attractive than traditional systems that are slower and less visible. So, when you look at the bigger picture, regulation may not be a barrier in this case, it could be a catalyst. RLUSD provides the stability and compliance that regulators want, while XRP provides the speed and efficiency that financial systems need. Together, they create a solution that has the potential to meet both regulatory requirements and market demands. And if that balance is achieved, the adoption of this ecosystem could accelerate much faster than most people expect. But there is still one final piece to this story that brings everything together. Because understanding the technology, the adoption, and the regulation is important. But what really matters is how you respond to it as an investor or observer. In the final part, we are going to break down what all of this means for you, what you should be watching closely, and how to think about this situation without getting caught up in hype or fear. Now that you have seen the full picture, from the sudden rise of RLUSD to its connection with XRP, the growing institutional interest, and the role of regulation, the most important question becomes very simple. What does all of this actually mean for you? And how should you think about it moving forward? Right now, the market is in a phase where information is spreading fast, but understanding is still catching up. Many people react to headlines without looking deeper into how the system works. This is exactly why you see confusion, mixed opinions, and sometimes extreme predictions. But when you break everything down step by step, a clearer picture starts to form. RLUSD is not just another stablecoin entering the market. It is part of a larger strategy by Ripple to build a complete financial ecosystem that can operate at a global level. It provides stability, compliance, and a familiar structure that institutions are comfortable with. This alone is a major step forward because it opens the door for large scale participation that was previously limited. At the same time, XRP remains a critical part of this system. Its role as a bridge asset means that as more value flows through the ecosystem, its utility becomes more important, not less. This is a key point that many people misunderstand. Utility and price do not always move together immediately, but over time, strong utility can create strong demand. So instead of focusing only on short term price movements, it becomes more useful to watch the bigger indicators. Look at adoption, look at partnerships, look at how often RLUSD is being used in real transactions, and how the XRP ledger activity is changing over time. These signals tell you much more about the long term direction than daily price charts. Another important mindset is patience. Financial systems do not change overnight. Even when the technology is ready, adoption takes time because institutions move carefully and follow regulations. What we are seeing right now could be the early stages of a long term shift rather than an instant transformation. This means there may be periods of slow movement, uncertainty, or even setbacks along the way. That is normal in any major transition. It is also important to stay balanced. There will always be people making very high price predictions and others saying nothing will happen at all. The truth usually sits somewhere in the middle. What matters is understanding the fundamentals and making decisions based on logic rather than emotion. If RLUSD continues to grow and successfully integrates into global finance, it could create a strong foundation for XRP to play a much larger role in the future. But this depends on multiple factors, including regulation, competition, and overall market conditions. No outcome is guaranteed, and that is something every investor should remember. Now, let's talk about what you should actually do with this information. First, stay informed. Follow developments related to RLUSD adoption, institutional partnerships, and updates from Ripple. These are the events that can shape the future of the ecosystem. Second, avoid reacting to every piece of news. Not every update is a major turning point. Focus on trends rather than isolated events. Third, think long term. If you believe in the technology and the direction it is heading, then short term volatility becomes less important compared to long term growth. And finally, always manage risk. No matter how strong a project looks, the crypto market is still unpredictable. Prices can move quickly in both directions, and external factors can have a big impact. Never invest more than you can afford to lose, and always make decisions based on your own research and understanding. If you found this breakdown helpful and you want more clear, simple updates like this, make sure you subscribe and stay connected because the situation around XRP and RLUSD is evolving fast, and the next few developments could be even more important than what we are seeing right now. Financial disclaimer: this content is for informational and educational purposes only and should not be considered financial advice. Cryptocurrency investments carry risk, and prices can be highly volatile. Always do your own research before making any investment decisions and consider speaking with a qualified financial advisor. The information shared here is based on current market understanding and may change as new developments occur. Your financial decisions are your own responsibility.